Some towns don't disappear, they recede. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, hundreds of incorporated communities across the United States have lost more than half their population since 1950. They're still on the map. Some still have mayors, a few still have schools. But statistics can't answer the deeper question: what remains after most of the life has gone? Here are 5 real towns, documented, still standing, each carrying its own history and its own quiet weight. Number 5. Cairo, Illinois. At the southernmost tip of Illinois, where the Ohio River meets the Mississippi, Cairo was once described by 19th-century boosters as the inevitable commercial capital of the American interior. The geography seemed to support the claim. 2 of North America's great rivers converging at a single point made Cairo a natural hub for trade and westward ambition. Charles Dickens visited in 1842 and was considerably less impressed, describing it in American Notes as a detestable morass. History sided with Dickens. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Cairo's population stood near 15,000 in 1920. By 2020, that figure had fallen to approximately 1,729, a decline approaching 90% across a single century. Median home values, tracked by Redfin, have lingered near the bottom of any comparable Illinois market, with properties regularly listed under $10,000. Entire city blocks stand vacant. The commercial district has contracted to a fragment of its former footprint. The causes are well documented. Racial conflict and prolonged civil unrest through the late 1960s and early 1970s accelerated disinvestment. Floodplain geography complicated infrastructure, and regional rail consolidation bypassed the city entirely. State intervention came late and inconsistently. What the data cannot fully capture is the quality of unfinished business that historians and longtime residents alike have noted here, not in any metaphysical sense, but in the unresolved weight of Cairo's racial history and unrealized ambition. Oral history projects document families who stayed not for economic reasons, but out of obligation to the ground itself. Cairo remains incorporated, still governed, still inhabited, but the distance between what it was designed to be and what it became is a silence that sits over the city and does not lift. Number 4. Centralia, Pennsylvania. In 1962, a fire ignited beneath the borough of Centralia, Pennsylvania. It is still burning. The precise origin remains historically disputed, though the most widely accepted account involves an improperly managed refuse fire set over an abandoned anthracite mine shaft. The flames spread into tunnels left behind by more than a century of coal extraction. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has monitored the site for decades. Official projections suggest the fire could continue for another 250 years. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Centralia's population in 1980 was approximately 1,000 residents. The 2020 census recorded 5. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania exercised eminent domain over most properties beginning in the 1980s, relocating families and demolishing structures as subsidence and carbon monoxide readings made habitation dangerous. The borough retains its zip code, 17927, as a matter of administrative record. Streets remain, cracked and buckled. Vegetation has reclaimed the lots where houses stood. Former residents have maintained an annual alumni gathering for decades, returning to a borough that can no longer hold them. Oral histories collected by regional researchers describe the displacement as a grief that was never properly named, treated by authorities as an engineering problem rather than the civic loss it was. The remaining roads still occasionally release steam through ground fissures or winter. The sulfurous smell reported by visitors is a documented byproduct of subsurface combustion, fully explainable by geology. And yet, environmental humanists studying the site have noted that Centralia produces an effect difficult to attribute to chemistry alone, a landscape existing, as one researcher described it, outside its proper temporal order. Centralia is not legend. It is a documented catastrophe, still unfolding in a borough that exists now, almost entirely on paper.
Number 3. Gary, Indiana. Gary was not discovered, it was constructed. In 1906, U.S. Steel Corporation purchased a stretch of Lake Michigan shoreline in northwestern Indiana and built a city from the ground up, designed entirely around the production demands of the largest steel mill in the world. Streets were platted, housing was erected, workers were recruited. Within 2 decades, Gary had become a functional industrial city of considerable size and ambition. It was, in almost every measurable sense, a company town, which meant its fate was inseparable from the fate of the company. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Gary's population peaked at approximately 178,000 in 1960. The 2020 census recorded roughly 69,000, a loss of more than 100,000 residents across 6 decades. Median home values tracked by Zillow have remained among the lowest of any mid-sized American city, with numerous properties listed below $20,000. FBI Crime Data Explorer figures have consistently placed Gary among the higher crime rate cities in Indiana, a reflection of concentrated poverty and decades of municipal disinvestment rather than any singular cause. The collapse of American integrated steel production through the 1970s and 1980s gutted Gary's economic foundation with a thoroughness that urban planners still cite as a case study. Bureau of Labor Statistics data from the surrounding Lake County region reflects persistent unemployment well above national averages across multiple decades. What remains in Gary is a landscape that architectural historians have described with genuine scholarly interest, entire neighborhoods of early 20th century housing standing in advanced states of decay. Public buildings designed with civic ambition, now stripped and vacant. Residents who stayed through the worst decades have described an attachment to the city that outsiders rarely understand. Gary was built with purpose. That purpose collapsed, but the city, diminished and scarred, has not disappeared, and some of its residents would prefer the world remembered that distinction.
Number 2. McDowell County, West Virginia. There are counties in the United States where the arithmetic of decline becomes difficult to read without pausing. McDowell County, West Virginia, is one of them. Situated in the southern coal fields of the state, McDowell was once the productive heart of Appalachian coal extraction, a region that powered American industry through 2 world wars and whose miners built a culture of considerable resilience and social density in the narrow hollows between the mountains. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, McDowell County's population in 1950 reached approximately 98,000 residents. The 2020 census recorded fewer than 19,000, a loss of nearly 80% across 7 decades. Median household income figures from recent Census Bureau estimates place McDowell among the lowest in the entire United States. Redfin public records show median home values in parts of the county falling below $15,000. State labor reports from West Virginia have documented unemployment and labor force withdrawal rates that consistently exceed national averages by substantial margins. The collapse followed the mechanization of coal mining, the decline of union leverage, and the broader shift away from coal as a primary energy source. Communities that had organized their entire civic infrastructure around a single extractive industry, found that infrastructure almost overnight in historical terms. What regional oral historians have documented in McDowell is something beyond economic data, a generational rupture, a loss of occupational identity so complete that some longtime residents have described it as a kind of communal grief without a clear object. Archival journalism from the region records accounts of families remaining in hollows long after services were withdrawn, maintaining homes on land their grandparents cleared, reluctant to sever a connection that no economic argument could adequately explain. The mountains remain. The coal is largely gone. And so, mostly, are the people.
Number 1. Talladega, Alabama. Talladega, Alabama sits in the upper Piedmont region of the state, roughly 50 miles east of Birmingham, and carries within its history a layering of ambition, contradiction, and slow contraction that is difficult to summarize without doing it some injustice. It is perhaps best known internationally as the home of the Talladega Superspeedway, a NASCAR venue that draws hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. What that association obscures is the condition of the city that surrounds it. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Talladega's population in 2020 stood at approximately 15,000, a figure that has remained largely stagnant for decades, while the surrounding regional economy has failed to generate meaningful replacement employment following the decline of textile manufacturing. Median household income estimates from recent Census Bureau data place Talladega well below both state and national averages. Zillow public records indicate median home values hovering near $50,000, reflecting a market defined more by exit than investment. The textile industry that once anchored Talladega's economy collapsed incrementally through the 1980s and 1990s as domestic manufacturing gave way to overseas production. Bureau of Labor Statistics data from Talladega County reflects the structural unemployment that has persisted across multiple generations in communities throughout the Alabama Piedmont. Talladega also carries a deeper historical complexity. It is home to Talladega College, founded in 1867 by formerly enslaved men and women, one of the oldest historically black colleges in the United States. That institution's survival across a century and a half of economic and racial adversity is itself a document of persistence that the city's broader decline cannot erase. Longtime residents have described a city caught between competing identities, the roar of a superspeedway once a year, and the quiet the rest of the time.